Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video we are going to look at this 4-person all-season tent from the company Iceco. Now Iceco is a company whose products I have not yet had an opportunity to take a look at on my channel, but they reached out to see if I'd be interested in looking at some of their outdoor gear. Now when I looked at the Iceco website, I thought it rang a bell with me. Iceco typically making very nice high-end coolers and outdoor refrigerators, just really nice stuff. And when they started talking about their outdoor gear lineup, I thought it would be a great opportunity to take a look at some of these products. So again, today this is the 4-person all-season tent. Now there are a couple different models here, but this particular one I thought would be about perfect for me. We're going to talk about it in a little bit of detail when we come back from the introduction. But this particular model, again, being for a 4-person application, they do call this a backpacking tent. It's a little bit big, it's a little heavy for that, so I wouldn't necessarily call this a backpacking tent. Could you get away with it? Maybe if you were really careful with the rest of your gear, or you split this up amongst a couple of people. Yes, in that case you could get away with it. But for me, this really would have a great role, a perfect role, as a nice sized, family-oriented car camping tent. For me, this has a lot of great features, and features that I've already come to know with some other brands. And again, we'll talk about that in some detail. So today, a first look at this tent, first impressions, seeing how it is to set this up, making sure it's ready for good outdoor and wilderness use. But with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Iceco who did provide this for review. And so now getting into the setup of the Iceco 4-person, 4-season camping tent. Now Iceco does call this a backpacking tent. As I mentioned, the first thing, this is going to be a little bit large for backpacking. This weighs in at 12.2 pounds. It is roughly 6.3 inches by 6.3 inches by 22 inches in its storage sack. Now you can see a few things as I get into this. Very nicely packaged up, everything exactly as we need. Now talking about the details, this is constructed of 190D ripstop polyester with a nice quality seam tape. It does have a ground sheet. It's not really a full bathtub design, but it does have a ground sheet built into it with a polyurethane coated 2000 millimeter water resistant grade Oxford. This particular variant of the tent does have a UPF 50 UV protecting coating, and you'll see when we get this set up, this protective coating is very dark on the inside, which I greatly enjoy. Iceco claims that it does block about 90% of sunlight, and it definitely does have the ability to reduce heat. Now I have set up tents like this in the past. If you're not aware, I have worked with Crua Outdoors in the past, and this is a very similar design to the Crua Duo. A great overall shape and gives you a ton of space on the inside. This has 1 mesh door and 3 mesh windows, a good amount of ventilation overall. It has a nice, large, oversized vestibule, and Iceco does claim that this is capable of holding 4 people, which I'd say, if this is for a family environment, they're actually correct. It does. Now, generally speaking, you can see the setup extremely easy. This goes up with ease. It's a very simple and basic design. I love the color of this tent, the green and the 2-tone design. Very desirable. Actually, it's really technically a 3-tone design with the dark green, the light green, and the sort of brownish gray color. I just like it. I think it plays well, and it's going to help blend into the background. I don't typically like extremely light colors or bright colors, so having this combination is awesome. And you can see a little fly over the top to help keep the windows dry. But generally speaking, the setup extremely easy. As you look inside, very cavernous. A nice large interior. Again, not truly a bathtub floor, but a nice ground sheet design. And the coating, this dark coating on the inside, really cool. Now I did find this does have sort of an interior divider, which is a little bit strange. I'm not sure it's fully fashioned. It cannot come off, and it gives you a separation of space, but at the same time, I kind of wish it could be separated. On the outside, some nice flaps to keep your door clean and dry. No ability for water to get in here. If you're careful, you'll see that a little bit later. This did rain very heavy. I did some quality testing. So night one, having this out, you can see a little bit of water did saturate into the fabric, but not a big deal. And you'll see I really messed up. I had some significant user error here, not a problem of the tent, just user error where unfortunately for me, what I did, I messed up staking down the corner. I wasn't careful. The corner tie out let go. And because of that, it left a major vulnerability and I allowed some serious water to get inside the tent. Now, my question was whether or not this was truly partially defect in the tent or simply user error. So you'll see I did stake this down much more carefully, tested it a second night of some significant rains, and everything for the most part was very dry. So the tent did its job. It did a great job keeping back the moisture, and it fulfilled its duty for water resistance. Now you can see here, taking a look at that interior divider up in place, it's kind of weird where it doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. So it's not like it adds additional protection from bugs, but it does give you a separated space between where you're sleeping and maybe where you want to keep your gear, or even maybe a dog. So having that is kind of cool, but at the same time, you cannot fully detach it from the floor. So if you don't want to use it, you kind of have that draped along the floor, where at that point, unfortunately, you're sort of stepping all over the mesh. So my suggestion is to raise this into place and just keep it up where it's meant to be. But you can see now with the windows down, definitely a good amount of light. I was searching around at all the seams, again, nicely taped, and for the most part, in very good shape. You can see checking all the seams, every single seam nicely taped, very flat, and they did a great job getting each and every little seam across the entire tent. I did check the entire tent, and they did a wonderful job all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom, and every seam in between. So again, the seam tape done very flat, no gaps, no bumps, no problems whatsoever. Iceco doing a very nice job to try to protect this tent for all seasons, all weather, and giving you an all-season tent. So for the most part, in very good shape. And you can even see along these pockets and all the windows taped very nicely. And I did really attempt to get this into some additional rain situation where we could take a look, make sure no water penetrated inside. A couple of places with just a tiny bit of moisture, and I don't know if that was necessarily residual from the night before where I really allowed a huge amount of rain to get in there, but at the same time, not a big deal. And you can see taking this sort of rolling it out of the way, there's some nice toggles that allow you to do everything easily, very nicely constructed. And so getting a good look at this, you can see there are a number of tie outs along the exterior in case you needed to really tie this thing down. Now, as I mentioned, getting this out into some additional rain, you can see here, really checking this to make sure that after a significant rainstorm, no water making it in. So far on the outside, all the flaps sitting in place where they need to, looking over the entire tent, checking it for vulnerabilities. But again, you can see just a little bit of water did penetrate into some of the fabric, but the main thing being, what about on the inside? And as we get inside and take a look a little bit closer, just making sure there aren't any problems. So getting into this here, taking a quick look, this is on the exterior portion outside in the vestibule. Looking around, not too much in the way of problems. This is where I had the bulk of my problems in the first place. But again, remember, that was user error and I was the reason why there was water in the first place. So as we get a little bit closer, is there any vulnerability? Well, checking everything out, getting some light in here so I can really see. The only water I can really see is coming technically from the window area, but then again, I did find just a little in what I'll call nuisance water. I'm not sure where this water came from. It was just a tiny bit of a puddle, not a big deal, but at the same time, it did show up in a couple of spots. And my suspicion is it could have come from the top where that rain cover goes over the very tippity top of the tent, and that's where it covers up the ventilation. I wonder if there was some side blown sort of rain that made it underneath. I can't really tell, so further testing would be needed, but I can tell you the rain was very substantial, very heavy, and for a reasonable amount of time. So just to have a little bit of nuisance water in here, not a big deal, but it is something to consider. More testing would definitely be necessary, but at least here I can see I wouldn't be soaked, I wouldn't be laying in a puddle. It would maybe just be a little bit of nuisance water. Again, not a huge deal. Now this is a perfect reason why I like to test my shelters in a controlled environment. If you've been watching my channel and specifically my shelter testing, you'll see I do typically test all of my shelters in a controlled environment ahead of time. I really like to understand what the nuances might be. I really like to understand what vulnerabilities a shelter might have, and especially when I'm going to bring it out into the wilderness. I typically go to the mountains. It's typically adverse conditions, and especially a tent of this size. Remember what I said. This is going to be really heavy for backpacking, but chances are if you're going to bring it out there, it's going to be with many people. And in my case, my family, my small family, my children, my wife. And so I definitely need the ability to keep them safe. So testing a shelter ahead of time, that is absolutely a must. But you can see here, generally speaking, doing a pretty good job keeping me fairly dry. Just that little bit of nuisance water. The nice thing is the construction should lend itself pretty well to keeping dry on the inside. Nice flaps over most areas. And this is the one place you can see if I was having problems, maybe some wind-blown rain coming in from the sides, but generally speaking, I don't think there's too much problem. It looks like they overlapped all their seams the right way so that the water would shed over the seams. There are a couple of spots where maybe there's just a little bit of a pocket where some moisture could get trapped and maybe ultimately make it to the inside. Now this does have a couple of features where you can add some poles and prop up the vestibule area and make a little porch. You can see I treat this a little different than their original intent, where I take the pole and I work it down into the little stake holes down at the bottom of the tent. This helps to keep those poles in place. You could get a little more height if you went literally vertical, but I like to take them, put them at an angle, and just tuck them down inside. You'll see down into the loops on the bottom of the tent. But overall, very nice. As you look inside, just beautifully done. A really nice tent. And a couple of additional features. You do end up with a little bit of an upper area. You can clip on this sort of little hammock on the inside, small little gear hammock that works out very well. There's some pockets along the sides of the tent, so you have some interior organization. Again, this is a nice large tent overall. Great zippers, very smooth, nice mesh, well constructed, and having the porch area is really nice. I can tell you after using my Crewa tents of a similar design, it is a fantastic design. Very nice having that little porch. Definitely a great place to sit, and sitting in the vestibule, getting your feet, looking out the front, really, really cool. So this Iceco 4-person all-season tent, a really nice design. For me, the next step will be getting it out into the outdoors for some deep mountain testing. I think I can take this to the next step. So all right guys, there you have it. A look at this Iceco 4-person all-season tent. Again, for the most part, very, very nice. I like the construction. I like the layout. There are many things about this that are fantastic, and really just a few things that are either a little bit funny or I wish could be changed. The water resistance, pretty good, and that was a real good test. Obviously, some significant user error. That's the other thing. Could you get away with some different pegs? I think different pegs might make an improvement to this system. And that is the thing with pegs like this. It's really, they're cheap, they're easy, they're very simple. I can't blame the company for going with them, but in certain cases you can see these things get all kinds of twisted and pepperonied, and especially when you have really tough and just rugged terrain, and for me, most of the places I go, extremely rocky. So unfortunately, these typically don't work very well, and the other thing is, even if you get them in the ground, sometimes they do have a tendency to twist. And that's what happened to me. So unfortunately, when that happens, and you have something with a loop, well, a loop on a twist can at that point let go, and then you end up with a vulnerability. And again, that's exactly what happened to me. So again, not so much really a design defect in terms of the tint, but a little bit of user error, and I think they could improve on the pegs. Now overall, in terms of the general features, the color, I love this color. It's literally perfect in my opinion. I love that sort of two-tone, and I love the green choice. It's a nice color. It blends in with the background, but at the same time, it's just got a tiny little bit of pop. I kind of like the fact that they put these little accents. Just really, really cool. And again, the idea being this can really fit a good number of people. They call this a 4-person tent. Usually 4-person tents really are not good for 4 people. In fact, 2 people tents is barely good enough for 1, and 1 you're squeezing yourself in. So the fact that this is a full-size, nice large tent would really be good for a family. So again, a family my size, 2 adults, 3 small children shouldn't be a problem. Maybe even 3 adults and a dog or something like that. And then gear, that's going to work out very well. And again, the only other thing that's a little bit funny, that odd intermediate wall. I just wish there was a way to detach it all together and get it clear out of the way if you didn't want it. The fact of the matter is you have plenty of mesh in the windows, in the door, in the vestibule area, the ability to really keep the bugs out. So having the additional interior panel, for me, it doesn't necessarily make sense. I don't see the need for it, but it is what it is, and it kind of gives you a separation of space if you need it. And last but not least, the fact that this particular model has that sort of dark interior, that nice dark interior, just really good to get to sleep, not wake you up. That sun protection, I prefer it to be dark. If I need light on the inside, I'm going to throw on a lantern anyway. So bottom line is great ventilation, overall quality, excellent construction, wonderful features. So to the people at Iceco, thank you very much and a job well done. Now real quick, we're going to turn the corner into one other product that they did provide, and that is their 0 degree sleeping bag. So here, this Iceco 0 degree sleeping bag, this particular model with a liner. This is not light. This is not compact. This is a 9-pound sleeping bag. But what I can tell you is, it is crazy comfortable. I love the way this feels. It gives you that feeling of almost like your home comforter. Really, really nice. And as you look at it here, this nice bright orange, really, really well done. And I did have the opportunity to use this at what I would say significant length. Unfortunately, in the crazy world we live in and the need to sometimes segregate, I was required to sleep on the couch, and with that, I needed a sleeping bag, and I used this for about 10 days straight, and I can tell you, it was a very enjoyable sleep. So as you look at this here, nice on the outside, bright orange, good durable material, and wonderfully constructed. On the inside of the sleeping bag itself, it does just have a standard liner. Again, this gray, very soft, and on the inside, it's a cotton synthetic material. So very nice, and in terms of the weight, again, this is good to what they say about 0 degrees. Now, when I say 0, I mean 0 Fahrenheit. So this is a heavy bag, and on the inside, it also has this soft fleece liner. So this is added to this. It is a zip-in liner. As you take a look here real briefly, you can see this does zip in. So this has a lot of weight, and where I was sleeping in my basement, I had the ability just to bundle up. And again, this is heavy enough that it feels like your good quality bedside comforter. You just wrap in it, it feels really good, and if it's a little warm, you just unzip it a bit and vent out, no problem. This is fantastic, and nice quality YKK zippers. Now this does have just a few features worth discussing, and it's a little bit interesting. You do also have armholes, which is a little bit interesting and is a feature that for me, take it or leave it. I mean, I don't necessarily need this, but the fact of the matter is it's there. And those armholes do go both through the primary sleeping bag and then also the liner. So it is thought through as a system, and it works quite well in that fashion. The back side of the sleeping bag is developed into a bit of a hood. So if you use this the sort of normal way, with the zipper on the right hand side as you're laying in this, you do end up with a little bit of a hood, so it does extend over your shoulders, it does extend behind your head. Now for me, I'm a little bit of a weirdo. I personally like a center zip sleeping bag, so what I'll do, I'll unzip this, I'll fillet it open, I'll lay inside, and then I'll zip it up right up the middle. That's easiest for me as I'm sleeping, as I can, in the middle of the night, just adjust my temperature quite easily. But what that means is the actual sort of piece and hood that goes behind my head gets offset to the side. Not a big deal. It is something that I can work with. Doesn't bother me at all, and it's actually worked out quite well. You do end up with this little enclosure, so that does help to keep the zipper from pulling open in the middle of the night, but I found it's not really going to do that anyway. This is a good stout YKK zipper, and no worries that this thing's going to pull open or really sort of fillet open on you in that case. So again, the zippers and the hardware, very nicely done. On the bottom, you do have some straps, so if you want to, you can roll this whole thing up, use these straps to kind of keep it tidy. But even more so, very simple, it does come with this nice large oversized storage bag. So not only can you roll this up and sort of get it out of the way, but you can stuff it into the storage bag, and that's going to work out very well. And so not just the tent, but I can say I definitely recommend this sleeping bag. It's not going to be for the backpacker, by no means. Car camper, fantastic. Auxiliary sleep system, no problem. Need something for a guest? This would actually work out very well. You got kids? Very nice. And even for me, being an adult and just needing a nice quality place to sleep, I like this. I like it a lot. Very comfortable. Definitely was able to regulate my body temperature. I felt good and comfortable, and in fact, I kind of miss sleeping in this now that I'm back in my regular bed. And so again, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Iceco who did provide these products for review. A first look, first impression, getting these set up in a controlled environment, so when I get out to the mountains, I know how this will react. I know how it's going to be to set this up. I've worked through all the nuances, and I'll be in great shape. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this time, that channel is growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there, so if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.